All right, guys, let's go ahead and get going. It's 10 o'clock. Call meeting to order. Notice this meeting was properly posted on Monday, April 10th, 2017. Item number 3, discussion and possible action to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on March 14th, 2017, and special meetings on March 22, 23, 24, 27, and April 3rd, 2017.
Move the item.
I did have one suggestion. On the April 3rd meeting minutes, there was a motion by Skuda, second by Satterwhite, to take a 10-minute recess at 2:38, and then a motion by Satterwhite, second by Miller, to return from recess at 3:50. That should have been 2:50.
Okay, let me take that and then
A long 15 minutes.
Correction.
got it.
I move it with the amendment.
Second. Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you take that?
Yeah.
Might be Russell. That's when you go back and take an hour and 50 minute break.
A long potty break.
We can keep that one if we also put it to the first minute we did it, because you still need to find it.
No, I prefer you to keep all things, so I don't wonder where it came from, what it's supposed to be associated with. All right, item number 4, discussion and possible action to receive an update on employee benefits.
This update includes the numbers for next week's claims. We have the numbers yesterday, so comparing through April 19th of this year through April 19th of last year, medical and prescription claims alone are up $3.6 million. We budgeted an increase of $590,000, so as of right now, in medical and prescription claims, we're about $3 million ahead of what we budgeted for the year. Just compare month to month. Just medical and prescription compared to last year, you can see the increases in the categories. April, we still have another week of April this year, so that's not a true comparison to April of last year. So we could potentially have another $2 million month this month, depending on the last week's claims.
Danny, on that $3 million increase, can you remind me what dollar amount of that is associated to the beginning fiscal year prescription drugs that were paid from last fiscal year?
Yes, $565,000.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's what this comparison is, just net backing that out and then comparing it to that, we're at about a $2.4 million increase over what we budgeted.
Does this take into account anything we've already transferred from reserve to employee benefits?
This isn't looking at what any transfers or anything, it's just actual paid claims. I'll show you where we're at. As of today, we've got appropriations totaling $470,000 available. Next week, at Budget Board, we're going to appropriate some March receipts and all the April receipts to date, which will give us this amount in appropriations. Then we have claims for April. Next week's claims are $601,000. That's 1 week. So we took the average of medical and prescription claims for that last week. And we also have some dental claims that we'll have to pay this month. So just the remaining April expenses, we're going to be about $126,000 short from what we're going to have available. Projecting that out through May. We're less than $1.2 million that we'll have available to appropriate. Estimate all the expenditures for May. We're going to be about $972,000 short just to get us through May, which is why I've got the 2 items on today's agenda, moving $500,000 from workers' comp and $500,000 from reserve for a total of $1 million. That should get us through the month of May. Obviously, it all depends on the medical prescription plans.
Although you're still $100,000 short, probably, if these were completely accurate. Okay.
Yeah, and
there's obviously no way to know.
Yeah, and through June, projecting out all the way through June, we'll end up about $1.8 million short.
Can you go up just a little bit so I can look at the April and the May, the April expenses and the May projected expenses?
Right.
So total projected expenses for April is 1 million?
No, what we have left.
What we have left,
Yeah.
okay, so the first 2
Right.
weeks is not
Right.
in there.
Correct.
That's what,
Yeah, that's already been netted out of what's available. That's 470. We've already paid the things that first 10 days in April.
are we anticipating much more revenue from stop loss?
Potentially, we do have 368,000 we've collected in April, about 270,000 of that's from stop loss. John said there is still a little more pending, but what we don't know is if it's a true reimbursement for paid claims. 'Cause a lot of that stop loss we get in, they'll hold the claims, and it's a true one-for-one,
Paid.
right? So, yeah, potentially we could bring in some more money from stop loss that'll help offset the claims paid.
We had some large claims that's driven up the cost since last year.
Yes. So that's why at this point, recommending that we move $1 million, half from workers' comp, half from reserve, over to employee benefits. Workers' comp, we've got, we're estimating we'll end the year with about 700,000, so we take the 500,000 out of there, we still should be in good shape for workers' comp. Again, workers' comp or self-funded, just like employee benefits, those claims can come in higher than expected also. Any questions?
So the total amount between now and July 1st that you estimate is about $1 million.
It would be short of
About
1.8
1.8.
before any action.
Right.
Any other questions?
Move we receive his report.
The motion to receive the report of employee benefits, is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Danny. All right. That's a dovetails with that. Item number 5, discussion of possible action to recommend a transfer of $500,000 from workers' comp to employee benefits.
Move the item.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to move $500,000 from workers' comp to employee benefits. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Great salesmanship. All right, item number 6, discussion of possible action to recommend a transfer of $500,000 from general fund reserve to employee benefits.
Move the item.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Hall of Famer. All right, item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding any item currently on the DET watch list. Or number 7, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just thought I had something more. I do have one question. With our action we just took on employee benefits, I would assume I moved 500 in the recommendation column and lower the amount, the 1 million, but I don't know what your recommendation would be, Danny. Do you still want?
Yeah, based on projecting out the rest of the year, I would still leave it at $1 million on the watch list.
Well, but then that's technically changing the watch list, because we only have 100,000 on there. I think we have to back it down to that 500 in the recommended, 500 in the other column, and then Danny, at our next meeting, we can always update it.
Okay.
And that can be articulated when it's explained by the
Sure.
board.
Right.
Anything else? All right, Christie, will you get that update for us? Thank you, appreciate that. All right, there's there's no other discussion on item number 7, we'll move to item number 8. Discussion of possible action to receive departments fiscal year 17-18 estimate of needs. Are there any other updates? Anything that?
Which would be the appropriate item, this one or the next one, to give the answer to the question to our department, which was the line by line under M&O, last year's and this year's?
That would be the next one.
Okay.
Okay. These are the two changes that were made, one to the county clerk salary compensation worksheet where we had the wrong number down there on the additional staffing, section 3. No change to the bottom line, it was just a correction to that number. And then the juvenile corrected budget we talked about at the last meeting, but this is just to receive it.
Okay. Are those reflected in the documents you emailed this morning? Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't know what, on juveniles, when I looked at it, the only thing that they changed was what Jamie had said, was, you know, the medical stuff. But she had said something about not being the 71,000 short, probably being 32,000 short and having to move. But I guess that's not affecting the estimate of needs, so we don't need to update on that. So we're good. Sorry, sometimes I have to
Is that this fiscal year, correct?
talk it out to,
No, but I appreciate the refresher, yeah.
you what?
I appreciate that you voiced that, so I think she did.
Okay, is there a motion to update those estimate of needs?
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion to receive those updated estimate of needs, and a second, all in favor? Aye. Is that everybody, aye?
Aye.
No? Okay. Okay. Item number 8, discussion of possible action regarding follow-up questions related to any fiscal year 17-18 estimate of needs that has already been presented.
The question of our office was if we could break out M&O, how we had that budgeted last year, since we had it broken out before this year, and of course Amy was off, dealing with some stuff, so once she got back, she was able to update that, so I'm providing that answer.
Now, I noticed on the sheet before that we've had, it's got the wrong cost center heading in it. I don't know.
So this is for you all, not the excise board? Okay.
Yes.
And how we did it.
Is this in your update, Dawn? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we just broke out the 16-17 column, so the additional money was clear.
Okay, any other questions? Do you want this updated? Okay, can you submit have you submitted this to Kelly?
I just gave it to her. Oh, you mean
Electronically.
If you could submit it, and then at our next meeting, we can receive the updated.
Yeah, if we can get
Send
the
that to her.
cost center corrected.
Oh, what?
This
See, it's corrected on mine, but every time you do it, it comes back to this excise, so we need to get that
You see
fixed.
what they're talking about up there at the top? There's a drop down, do you have?
Oh, I see it, yeah.
I think Excise and Equalization Board would be
Thrilled
excited
with
to
that
see
budget,
that they're.
They wouldn't know what to do with that.
So you guys are just switching? Are you guys switching budgets?
We can switch responsibilities.
You can make it on $47,000, can't you?
And do their job.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions, comments about estimate of needs that have already been presented?
Do we need to make a motion to receive that? I make a motion to receive the court clerk's revised budget request worksheet for 17-18.
Okay, that would be up under item number 8. We could reopen that.
I thought
we
you had
would-
told him to do it under 9.
Well, I did, because I thought he was just answering questions.
We're gonna do that next.
Yeah, well, or what I
We'll
thought.
send it to Kelly and you can receive it next
I
time.
can send it to Kelly, and that way they have the electronic, and then we can receive it after that.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no other discussion on item number 9, item number 10, discussion and possible action about processes and procedures for fiscal year 17-18 budget reviews and recommendations. Anything anybody want to discuss?
We're kind of doing more of a regular meeting today, but it seems like, and you guys, you know, maybe I'm wrong, I'm a little bit new to the table, but not new to the county, but it seems like when we get in here and we start talking about next year's budget, that we get really, I'm not everybody, but we get departmentalized. It's like there's this feeling that if I give up anything to the sheriff, then my department has to lose, or if the sheriff gives up anything to me, or it's like this zero-sum game, I guess, if you will. And I just, you know, I wish we could find ways to keep our focus on the big picture, the entire county. And one process idea that I think could help with that would be if we had a list of, once we go through and we kind of get the basic stuff taken care of, like we always do, we had a list of, okay, we've got the basic stuff taken care of. These are the additional things that departments want, almost like the watch list. You can't expect anybody putting something on there, or you can, but you shouldn't, you know, just protocol-wise, let people put their wishes on the list, and then maybe have the individual offices prioritize that whole list, and come up with some kind of a point system, and see if we can come up with some kind of an order of needs based upon that. Because seems like what we usually do is one thing will come up, and we don't know what's going to come up 3 or 4 items down the road, and so we just kind of set it aside, which is why, what do we have in reserve today? $3.2 million. We're going to move out another $500,000, you know, which is why we have this giant savings account. And meanwhile, a lot of the things that could be solved don't get solved. I mean, the phone system, for one thing, you know, it's a $700,000 need. I don't know. I mean, I think everybody agreed when we heard that presentation that it was something vital that we do as a county, especially once we found out that if the old switch goes down, we're all down anyway. New phones, old phones, doesn't matter what you have, you're down. So, you know, we got $2.7 million. If they move that $500,000, you know, that's something that we might be able to either start to fund or fund. But anyway,
Yeah.
if we could come up with some kind of a process for prioritizing that list and see what we can.
Yeah, last year we took a similar but different approach. We didn't, you know, each rank them, but we went through each individual estimate of need and said, okay, this is the bare minimum that they need, but say they were asking for 10 new computers. Well, we don't necessarily know about that, so let's put these 10 computers for Department X on that working document that we were doing, and then telephones and that kind of stuff, and we put that over here. Then we went through all of the estimated needs to figure out what those bare bones necessities were for everybody. And then we did have revenue projections at that time, which we don't have those yet.
Right.
We compared that with the revenue projections to see how much money we had to work with. Then we went to that other list and started prioritizing.
Right.
Now, the way we prioritized it was a little bit wonky, maybe, and maybe there's your idea of each department prioritizing, or something. I mean, I think those are good discussions to figure out how to prioritize that list. But
and it'd be kind of like your Heisman Trophy vote. It wouldn't be a secret. Where it's an open meeting, it'd have to be received, made part of that record, I would think, if your department, if we went through that process. But anyway, that's just one idea. I'm looking for ways. I don't know. It just seems like nobody looks forward to coming to these meetings. I like everybody around this table, and I hope one or two of you like me, but. I just wish we could figure out a way to not make it such a not combative, because
That's a process.
Well, or it seems to me that in the interest of avoiding the adversarial process, we just avoid it. We don't address anything, and so no problems for anybody get solved. Seems like, and I'm not trying to be critical of anybody, I just want to.
No, I agree. I mean, there's hard questions and hard discussions that need to be had, and, you know, just because I may not like, you know, the answer that everybody else has, that doesn't mean that it needs to be adversarial. I mean, it's just, this is the process, and, you know, we're all adults, and we can, you know, come up with a collective solution that'll work for the county. But I do agree, we can't just, you know, tippy-toe around. We've got to delve in there. I think we're a little limited right now without having the revenue projections, but I do think that we could start going through the estimate of needs and saying, okay, this is what we need to pull out to put on the working document, because this is what we have to do and this is what we have to have. And hopefully, by the time we have the revenue projections, we've got all of the estimate of needs gone through and the bare minimum that we need to do on there. So then when we get the revenue projections, at that point, we're in our process able to look at that priority sheet and figure out what to do with the extra money.
That's also critical, Mr. Chairman, when you come to the September supplement, because if there are true needs, what traditionally has done is park that supplement over here and say, well, benefits. And if there are needs, how can you start the year July 1? Can you make it through September 30? And then what happens September 30? So I think Mr. Sullivan's idea has a great deal of merit for the greater good. Is what can you do in September for the greater good, as opposed to just putting it in reserve.
Yeah, well, and that priority list, just because something gets funded initially with gets on the recommendation and potentially fit initially from budget board, just because something else doesn't get it, doesn't mean that in September it won't, because we can keep that working document, and when the September supplement comes in, we can go back and visit that. It doesn't mean that we may not have something else come up in the interim that's also of importance, but I do think this year is going to be a little bit tricky on benefits because of the change with the healthcare highways and changeover for the prescription. I mean, we've been told it's going to save, what, $2 million, a little over $2 million. But it's going to take a little while for us to see that on the medical side. So when is that going to start tracking and all that? So we're going to have to be a little flexible on our on the amounts that we have. Maybe not put into employee benefits, but sitting in reserve in case we do need to move it over. But, yeah. Anyway, good suggestion.
Great.
Anything else?
I know maybe we could take a look at a drop dead date where no more revised estimate needs get turned in. We cut it off. It seems like in the past week.
What?
Can I get an amen from the clerk?
No, we probably might cut it off.
In fairness to some, though, some of the estimated needs the changes aren't just because, we want to ask for more money. Some of it has been our pointed questions, and they've needed to. And everybody's been through that process already, so those changes should have already been made. And if they haven't, then if we do set a drop dead, they should be met by that time. I do agree. I mean, we can't keep.
Do we have all the revisions and things we have?
Yeah, I'm fine with the next meeting that we have, that'll be the last time to do a revision on the estimate of needs.
And does this group think we can get started on the vast majority of this prior to receiving the final revenue number?
Oh, definitely.
And that way we
Those
can,
kind of already have been done.
well, I mean, really get the ball moving again to where all we're doing is making some minor changes at the very end based on
The revenue.
revenues.
Revenues are just next week.
Yep.
Yeah, my intent, I mean, we're in a short week this week, but I'll call some special meetings here. I'll have the clerk's office send out to everybody to find out what availability is, but we'll start scheduling some special meetings. And like I said, before we get the revenue projections, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we can go through and say, hey, you know, they're going to have this. Now, these 3 or 4 things, maybe, maybe not, we'll, you know, put that over on another document. We'll discuss that later, once we have the revenue projections. But, I mean, we can get a lot of the heavy lifting done now, I think.
We should have a revenue number by end of day Monday. We have to get it ready for the budget board on Thursday. So hopefully we'll get the figure from the assessor's office by the end of this week, or at least on Monday.
Could I ask, do you need me to notify people of that drop dead date on next week's meeting, or do we just, how are we gonna handle that?
I don't want to open the floodgates
Yeah,
and have a
no,
bunch of people.
here's what I think. I think
I can see it's getting all new ones.
I think everybody's had a deadline that the clerk's office set, and everybody, I mean, I think everybody met that, but everybody sent it in. We had some questions and some concerns, and people made those adjustments. I think, according to, you know, my conversations with Kelly, all of those have been submitted and changed with the exception of the court clerks, and we can get that done next time. I don't think we need to send anything out to anybody. I mean, it's done on the estimate of need request. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't make adjustments if somebody comes in and says, hey, I know I only asked for this, but I missed this. Well, we can still consider that in our recommendation, but as far as the actual estimate of needs, I think we're done. And I mean, I'm fine to go back to item number 8, if you guys want, and receive the court clerks now before it's submitted.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a minor thing, it's
Because,
just detailing last year.
yeah, if that's what everybody wants to do, and then, I mean, then it could be, we're not receiving any period moving forward.
Say we do that.
Okay. Is there any other discussions about policies and procedures for this year?
I do have one other question on the PDA estimate of needs. I didn't turn one in on the reserve cost center. I didn't know if that's something we want to request. It's such a large amount of money, and I think it would really help us make decisions.
Did we turn in the year before? Yes, we need some.
I don't think so. But I don't see that would include us from asking for it this year.
Is it something that we actually need the estimate of needs for the book, or could we just request information from,
Either one, yeah.
and then we could just receive that document separately?
It would be helpful when we're looking at capital needs, phone systems, all those kinds of things.
Okay.
Is that document that Keith present to us that day?
You can't really tell a reserve. I mean, each cost center from Kraus and Lincoln have their own small capital, but there's nothing showing the reserve amount and any intent there for the next fiscal year.
Yeah, and I think we could probably accomplish that with a spreadsheet or a Word document that he could bring in and explain. Since that money's all kind of accounted for anyway. All right. Anything else on this agenda item? Okay, if not, is there a motion to return to item number 8, discussion on possible action received Department's fiscal year 17-18 estimate of needs?
So moved.
Second. Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, item number 8, do we have a motion?
I I make a motion we receive the update of details for the court clerk's budget request worksheet for 1718.
For an enthusiastic second.
Do we need to notate?
The correction on-
Correction on the cost center?
No.
Okay. Because we know what it is. Okay, there's a motion and a second to receive the update for the court clerk's fiscal year 17-18 estimated needs. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Is there any opposed to that? Okay, item number 11, discussion, review, and possible action. Action may include, but not limited to, requesting additional information from departments, receiving documents, or making recommendations to the budget board regarding establishing and implementing a systematic process for assessing all funds, their proportionate share of all budgetary transfers and administrative costs of employee benefits based upon the percentage of employees on the health plan. It's a request by Mike Sullivan, who is obviously paid by the board.
Actually, this
Move
is,
to strike.
he would ask me to take this off and I forgot. Sorry,
Okay.
my bad.
So you are not paid by the word. Sorry.
Don't give him any
I
ideas.
vehemently move to strike.
There's a motion.
Stringently.
I'm just
What's
kidding.
that word?
Strike.
Strenuously, that's it. I strenuously move to strike.
All right, there's a motion to strike. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 12, discussion possible action, make a recommendation to Oklahoma County Budget Board from the Oklahoma County Budget Evaluation Team regarding fiscal year 17-18 estimate of needs.
You don't have anything at this point.
Right. Does anybody else have anything? If not, there's no action on 12. 13, new business. Any new business? Seeing none, citizens participation? Anybody? Nope. Board comments? Mr. Satterwhite?
No, thank you.
Nope.
Mr. Stein?
Just talked with the vet in the office. He recovers this morning.
What?
The vet in the officer got attacked on a domestic this morning.
Okay, and we've had an employee in District 1 that's had a death in the family, so if you guys would keep District 1 in your thoughts and prayers, we'd appreciate it. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.